The massive Kalari warship floated in the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. Its silver hull stretched for miles, covered in weapons that could destroy entire cities with a single blast. Inside the ship, hundreds of alien soldiers moved. Through corridors that glowed with blue light, Commander Vex High stood in the center of the main bridge. His tall, thin body was covered in dark green scales that shimmered under the bright lights. 4 arms moved across control panels while his large black eyes studied the holographic display floating in front of him. The display showed a small blue planet far away. Earth. Sub-Commander Taishra, report, Vex High said in his deep voice. A smaller Kalari with purple markings on her arms stepped forward. Commander, the quantum prediction matrix has completed its analysis. We have calculated 2.7 million possible battle scenarios for the human home world. Vex High's mandibles clicked together, showing his satisfaction. The quantum prediction matrix was the pride of the Kalari Empire. This massive computer could predict the outcome of any battle before it even started. It had never been wrong. Not once in 47 conquered worlds. Show me the results, Vex High commanded. The holographic display changed. Now it showed countless numbers and charts flowing like a waterfall of data. Red lines showed human defeat. Blue lines showed Kalari victory. There were millions of red lines and millions of blue lines, but they all ended the same way. In every single scenario, the humans surrender within 72 hours, Taishra reported. The longest resistance lasts only 68 hours and 12 minutes. The shortest is 14 hours and 3 minutes. Another Kalari officer, war strategist Nexican, approached the command platform. His body was larger than the others, built for combat rather than analysis. The humans are weak, Commander. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships move slowly. Their soldiers lack proper training. Vex High studied the data more carefully. The matrix showed human population centers, military bases, and defense systems. Everything was mapped and analyzed. Every strength was cataloged. Every weakness was identified. What about their psychology? Vex High asked. Taishra touched a control pad. The display changed to show brain scans and behavior patterns. Humans are driven by emotion rather than logic. They panic when faced with superior force. They surrender quickly to protect their families. The Matrix predicts they will give up after we destroy 3 major cities. Deep in the lower levels of the ship, Lieutenant Kominho sat on a cold metal bench in his prison cell. The human pilot had been captured 3 months ago when his small reconnaissance ship was ambushed near the asteroid belt. Since then, the Kalari had scanned his memories, studied his reactions, and asked him endless questions about Earth's defenses. Minho was young, maybe 25 years old, with short black hair and tired brown eyes. His blue uniform was torn and dirty. The Kalari had taken good care of his body to keep him healthy for interrogation, but they had not been gentle with his mind. A guard approached his cell. This Kalari was different from the others. Shorter, with silver markings instead of the usual purple or gold. Human, you will come with me. Minho stood up slowly. His legs were stiff from sitting too long. Another memory scan? The sub-commander wants to ask you questions. They walked through the ship's corridors. Minho had memorized every turn during his many trips to the interrogation room. The walls were smooth and curved, like the inside of a giant tube. Strange symbols glowed along the ceiling, providing light and probably carrying information he could not understand. The interrogation room was white and empty, except for 2 chairs and a table. Sub-Commander Taishra was waiting for him. Her purple markings seemed brighter than usual, which Minho had learned meant she was excited or anxious about something. Sit down, human, she said. Minho sat in the chair across from her. It was built for Kalari anatomy, so it was uncomfortable for his human body. Are you going to scan my brain again? No, today I want you to talk. Tishra placed a small device on the table. It projected a holographic image of Earth floating in space. Tell me about your planet. What do you want to know? Everything. Your cities, your people, your leaders. How will they react when our fleet arrives? Minho looked at the image of his home world. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and white clouds swirling around green and brown continents. They will be afraid. Good. Fear makes surrender easier. But they will also fight. Tishra's mandibles clicked in amusement. With what? Your weapons are centuries behind ours. Your ships are slow and weak. Your military is scattered across your solar system. You don't understand humans very well, Minho said quietly. We understand you perfectly. The quantum prediction matrix has analyzed your entire species. We know how you think, how you react, how you break. You are not special. Human, you are just another conquest. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Li Jiwan stood in the command center of the Global Defense Network. The room was filled with monitors showing space around Earth. Officers and technicians worked at their stations, tracking every ship and satellite. In the solar system, Jiwan was 32 years old, with long black hair tied back in a military bun. Her dark eyes studied the tactical displays with growing concern. For weeks, long-range sensors had detected strange energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Now those signatures were moving closer. Captain, we're receiving Priority 1 transmission from Deep Space Station 7, reported Communications Officer Park Sun-ho. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed the face of Colonel Han Sung-min, commander of the Outer Defense. Ring, his expression was grim. Captain, we have a problem. Our deep space telescopes have identified an alien fleet approaching from the Centauri direction. Initial count shows at least 50 ships, possibly more. The command center fell silent. Everyone stopped working and stared at the screen. First contact with alien life had always been a possibility, but no one expected it to come in the form of a military fleet. Size and configuration? Jiwan asked, keeping her voice steady. The largest ship is approximately 8 kilometers long. The others range from 2 to 4 kilometers. Their technology appears to be far advanced beyond anything we have. Jiwan felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. Earth's most advanced warships were only half a kilometer long. Their weapons were designed to fight other human ships, not alien technology. Time to arrival? 48 hours at their current speed. Thank you, Colonel. Continue monitoring and send all data to Fleet Command. The transmission ended. Jiwan turned to face her staff. She could see fear in their eyes, but also determination. These were good people, trained professionals who would do their duty no matter what. Alert all defense stations, she ordered. Contact Fleet Command and request immediate reinforcement of the home system. Send messages to all colony worlds warning them of possible alien contact, and ... She paused, knowing her next words would change everything. Activate the emergency response protocol. As her staff hurried to carry out her orders, Jiwan looked up at the ceiling viewport. Through the transparent metal, she could see stars scattered across the black sky. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was coming to Earth. She had no idea what they wanted or how to stop them, but she knew one thing for certain. Humanity would not surrender without a fight. Aboard the Kaleri flagship, Commander Vex High made his final preparations. The quantum prediction matrix had given him everything he needed to know. The humans would resist briefly, then collapse when faced with superior force. It would be over quickly. He had no way of knowing that his perfect computer had never encountered a species quite like humanity. The matrix could calculate weapons and ships and tactics, but it could not calculate the human heart. The Kalari fleet emerged from hyperspace like a storm of metal and death. 50 massive ships appeared around Earth's solar system, their weapons already charging with deadly energy. The largest vessel, Commander Vex High's flagship, positioned itself directly above Earth's largest continent. Captain Lee Ji-1 watched the invasion unfold from the Global Defense Network Command Center. Her screens showed red dots surrounding the blue dot that represented her home world. Each red dot was an enemy ship powerful enough to destroy entire cities. All orbital defense platforms are offline, reported Lieutenant Kim Yuna from her communication station. They disabled them in the first 30 seconds. Casualties? Ji-1 asked, though she dreaded the answer. Unknown. The platforms were automated. But we lost contact with Defense Station Alpha. 200 crew members were aboard. Ji-1 closed her eyes for a moment. The war had started, and people were already dying. She opened her eyes and looked at the tactical display. Earth's defense fleet was scattered across the solar system. Even if she could recall every ship, they would be no match for the alien technology. "Captain, incoming transmission from the alien fleet," Yuna announced. "Put it on main screen." The display flickered and showed Commander Vex High standing on his bridge. His scaled face filled the screen, black eyes staring directly at the camera. When he spoke, his voice was translated by their computers into clear English. "People of Earth, I am Commander Vex High of the Kalari Empire. Your world is now under our control. You have 48 hours to surrender completely. If you refuse, we will demonstrate our power by destroying 3 of your major cities. Choose wisely." The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Ji-1 looked around at her staff. Fear was written on every face, but she also saw determination. These were good people who would not give up easily. Options? She asked. Colonel Park Sin-ho, her tactical advisor, stepped forward. "We could evacuate the major cities and prepare for guerrilla warfare. Our ground forces might be able to resist occupation for months. That means millions of civilian deaths," Ji-1 replied. "The alternative is complete surrender." Dr. An Tae-yun, the science advisor, cleared his throat. "Captain, there might be another option. We could try to communicate with them directly, learn what they want." "They want our surrender," Sun-ho said. "It's obvious." "Maybe," An said. "But why give us 48 hours? Why not just attack immediately? They have the power to destroy us right now." Ji-1 considered this. The aliens had disabled Earth's defenses in minutes, but they were waiting. There had to be a reason. Meanwhile, aboard the Kalari flagship, Sub-Commander Taishra was conducting another interrogation session with Lieutenant Ko Min-ho. The human pilot sat in his usual chair, looking tired but not broken. "Your people have 36 hours remaining," Taishra informed him. "The quantum prediction matrix calculates they will surrender in 18 hours once they realize resistance is hopeless." Min-ho looked up at her with sad eyes. "You really don't understand us at all. We understand you perfectly. Humans are emotional creatures driven by fear and self-preservation. When faced with overwhelming force, you submit to protect your families. Is that what happened to your people?" The question caught Taishra off guard. Her purple markings flickered, a sign of surprise. "What do you mean, your invasion patterns?" "I've been studying them during my captivity. You always give ultimatums. You always wait for surrender rather than simply destroying everything. That's not the behavior of a species that enjoys conquest." Taishra's mandibles clicked nervously. "We are efficient. Why waste resources destroying what we can simply take?" "No," Min-ho said quietly. "You're looking for something. Every world you conquer, you strip mine their resources and move on. You're not building an empire. You're gathering materials for something else." "Silence," Taishra ordered, but her voice lacked its usual authority. "What happened to your home world?" Min-ho pressed. "What are you trying to rebuild?" Taishra stood abruptly and left the interrogation room without another word. As she walked through the corridors of the ship, Min-ho's questions echoed in her mind. How could this primitive human see patterns that their own analysts had missed? Back on Earth, Captain G1 made a decision that would change everything. Against the advice of her military council, she chose to respond directly to the alien commander. "Open a channel to the Kalari flagship," she ordered. "Captain, that could be seen as a sign of weakness," Sunho warned. "Or it could be the beginning of understanding." The communication channel opened. G1 found herself looking at Commander Vex High's imposing figure on her screen. His black eyes studied her with cold intelligence. "I am Captain Lee G1 of the Earth Defense Force," she began. "I want to speak with you." "You wish to discuss surrender terms," Vex High stated. Double quotes, "No. I want to understand why you're doing this." The Kalari commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Understanding is irrelevant. You will surrender or you will be destroyed." "But you could have destroyed us already," G1 said, echoing Dr. An's earlier observation. "Your technology is clearly superior, yet you're giving us time to surrender." "Why?" For a moment, Vex High said nothing. Behind him, G1 could see other Kalari officers watching the conversation with interest. "We are not monsters," Vex High finally said. "We prefer to avoid unnecessary destruction." "That tells me your people value life," G1 replied. "So do. We're not so different. We are nothing alike human. You are weak and primitive. We are strong and advanced. Then why do you sound so sad?" The question hit Vex High like a physical blow. His scaled face showed no emotion, but something in his posture changed. For just a moment, the mask of the cold military commander slipped. "You know nothing about us," he said, but his voice was quieter now. "I know that conquest doesn't bring happiness," G1 said gently. "I know that a truly strong species doesn't need to prove its strength by destroying others. And I know that you're in pain." The transmission ended abruptly. Vex High had cut the connection, but not before G1 saw something in his eyes that looked almost like grief. In the command center, the staff stared at their captain in amazement. She had just accused an alien warlord of being in emotional pain, and somehow it had affected him. "Captain," Eunice said from her station, "I'm detecting increased communication traffic between the alien ships. Their transmissions are encrypted, but the volume suggests significant discussion among their commanders." "What kind of discussion?" "Unknown, but it wasn't happening before your conversation with their commander." Dr. An approached G1's command chair. "Captain, I think you may have done something unprecedented. You've introduced an unknown variable into their calculations." "What do you mean?" "Think about it. They've conquered 47 worlds using the same pattern. Arrive, demand surrender, destroy resistance, move on. They've perfected the process. But what if no one has ever tried to understand them before? What if no one has ever shown them empathy instead of fear?" In his cell, Lieutenant Minho felt the ship's engines change their vibration pattern. Something was happening. The Kalari were either preparing to attack Earth or something else entirely. He thought about Sub-Commander Taishra's reaction to his questions about their home world. The way her markings had flickered when he suggested they were searching for something rather than simply conquering. What if the key to saving Earth wasn't military resistance, but understanding why the Kalari were fighting in the first place? On the bridge of the flagship, Commander Vex High stared at the image of Earth floating on his main screen. The quantum prediction matrix was still calculating battle scenarios, but for the first time in his military career, he found himself questioning whether battle was the right answer. The human captain's words echoed in his mind. "You're in pain." How could she possibly know about the great plague that had destroyed the Kalari home world? How could she understand the desperate search for resources to rebuild their dying civilization? "Commander," Taishra said, approaching his command platform. "The Matrix is showing unusual fluctuations in its predictions." "What kind of fluctuations?" The probability of human surrender has dropped from 94% to 87%. The system cannot explain the change. Vex High's claws clicked against his control panel. The Matrix had never been wrong before. If it was showing uncertainty now, something fundamental had changed in their calculations. Maintain position, he ordered. Continue monitoring human communications. Sir, should we prepare for the scheduled demonstration attack on their cities? Vex High was silent for a long moment. Finally he said, not yet. I want to see what these humans do next. For the first time in Kalari military history, their perfect prediction system had encountered a variable it could not calculate: human compassion in the face of overwhelming odds. 24 hours remained before the Kalari deadline. Commander Vex High stood before the massive quantum prediction matrix in the ship's main computer chamber. The room was filled with glowing blue crystals that hummed with processing power. Data streams flowed like waterfalls of light across the walls. Show me the current predictions, Vex High commanded. The matrix responded with holographic displays showing Earth from every angle. Numbers and calculations filled the air around him. But something was wrong. The predictions were changing every few minutes, showing different outcomes that contradicted each other. Matrix, explain the inconsistencies in your calculations. The computer's voice was emotionless and precise. Unknown variable detected in human behavior patterns. Previous psychological profiles show 97.3% accuracy. Current accuracy has dropped to 73.8% and continues to decline. What variable? Unable to identify. Human responses do not match established patterns from previous 47 conquests. Vex High's mandibles clicked in frustration. The Matrix had never failed him before. It was supposed to predict everything, account for every possibility. But somehow, these humans were behaving in ways that defied logic. On Earth, Captain Li Jiwan was preparing something that no military academy had ever taught her. She stood in the communication center, surrounded by her staff and several civilian scientists. Dr. Kim Yuna was adjusting the transmission equipment while Dr. An Tae-yun reviewed his notes. Are you certain about this approach, Captain? Colonel, Park Sun-ho asked for the third time. No, Ji-won admitted. But conventional military tactics won't work against their technology. We need to try something they won't expect. And you think apologizing to an alien invasion force is unexpected? I think showing empathy to someone who's been conquering worlds for years is something they've never encountered. Dr. An looked up from his research. Captain, I've been analyzing the communication patterns from their ships. There's definitely increased discussion among their commanders. Your first conversation with Commander Vex High created some kind of disruption in their normal procedures. What kind of disruption? I'm not sure, but their fleet movements have become less coordinated. Some ships have moved closer to Earth, others have pulled back. It's like they're uncertain about their next move. Lieutenant Yuna called from her station. Captain, we're ready to transmit. Ji-won took a deep breath and walked to the communication platform. Around the world, every television, radio, and internet connection would carry her message. But more importantly, it would be broadcast directly to the Kalari fleet. Open the channel. The transmission began. Ji-won looked directly into the camera, knowing that millions of humans and dozens of alien ships would receive her words. Commander Vex High, this is Captain Li Ji-won of Earth. I want to speak to you not as a military officer to another, but as one living being to another. Aboard the Kalari flagship, every officer on the bridge stopped what they were doing. The human captain's image appeared on their main screen, but her expression was different from their first conversation. Instead of defiance or fear, her face showed something the Kalari had never seen from a conquered species: genuine concern. I've been thinking about our conversation, Ga-won continued. About the pain I saw in your eyes. I don't know what happened. To your people, but I want you to know that I'm sorry for your loss. Sub-Commander Tishra stepped closer to the main display. Her purple markings were flickering rapidly, a sign of extreme emotional disturbance. Commander, this behavior is not in any of our psychological profiles. I know your people have been traveling the galaxy for many years, Jiwan said. I know you've conquered 47 worlds. But conquest doesn't heal wounds, Commander. It only creates new ones. Vex High felt something strange happening in his chest. The human was speaking about things she couldn't possibly know. How could this primitive species understand the grief that drove the Kalari Empire across the stars? Whatever you lost, destroying. Other worlds won't bring it back, Jiwan continued. Whatever you're searching for, maybe there's another way to find it. In the detention level, Lieutenant Ko Minho was listening to the transmission through the ship's internal communication system. He had spent months studying Kalari behavior, learning their language and customs. He could see things that others missed. The guard outside his cell was trembling. In Kalari physiology, trembling indicated deep emotional conflict. The human captain's words were affecting the entire crew. Human, the guard said suddenly. Your captain speaks of things she should not know. What things? The great dying, the search for the new home. These are sacred matters not shared with conquered species. Minho felt a surge of understanding. Your home world died, didn't it? That's why you're conquering other planets. You're looking for resources to build a new one. The guard's scales changed color, becoming darker. How do you know this? Because humans have faced extinction too. We know what it's like to lose everything and fight to survive. Back on the bridge, Commander Vex High was watching something unprecedented unfold. His crew was openly discussing the human transmission instead of following standard protocols. War strategist Nexican approached the command platform with obvious distress. Commander, the Matrix is malfunctioning. It cannot process the current. Scenario, explain. The human captain is displaying behavior that contradicts all known patterns. She shows empathy toward her enemies. She apologizes for events she did not cause. She offers understanding instead of resistance. Vex High looked at the data streaming across his displays. The quantum prediction matrix was indeed failing. Error messages appeared and disappeared as the computer tried to calculate outcomes for scenarios it had never been programmed to handle. Perhaps the matrix is not malfunctioning, Sub-Commander Tishra said quietly. Perhaps it simply cannot predict compassion. Every eye on the bridge turned to look at her. Speaking against the matrix was close to heresy in Kalari culture. Sub-Commander, Vex High warned. With respect, Commander, the matrix has calculated 47 successful conquests. But in every case, the conquered species responded with fear, anger, or desperation. None of them ever tried to understand us. On Earth, Jiwan's transmission continued. She had moved beyond military protocol into something much more personal. I want to tell you about something that happened on Earth 200 years ago, she said. Our planet was dying. Pollution, climate change, and war had brought us to the edge of extinction. We thought the only way to survive was to fight each other for the remaining resources. Commander Vex High found himself leaning forward, listening intently. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of fighting, we chose to work together. We shared our knowledge, our resources, our hope. It took generations, but we healed our world. Dr. An stepped into view beside Jiwan. Commander Vex High, my name is Dr. An Taeyun. I'm a planetary restoration specialist. If your home world has been damaged, we might be able to help. The Kalari bridge erupted in shocked voices. Several officers spoke at once, their scales changing colors rapidly. The idea of a conquered species offering aid to their conquerors was beyond their comprehension. Silence, Vex High commanded. But his voice lacked its usual authority. Professor Choi Minji joined the transmission. "Commander, I study terraforming technology. We've learned how to restore dead atmospheres, clean poisoned water, and rebuild destroyed ecosystems." The quantum prediction matrix finally crashed completely. Warning lights flashed throughout the computer chamber as the system that had guided Kalari military strategy for centuries shut down in confusion. "Matrix offline," reported the computer. "Technician, all prediction capabilities suspended." For the first time in his military career, Commander Vexhai was operating without the guidance of perfect calculations. He had to make decisions based on instinct and emotion rather than mathematical certainty. Sub-Commander Taishra approached him carefully. "Commander, I request permission to speak privately with the human prisoner." "Why?" "To understand how they know about our great dying, to learn how they survived their own planetary crisis." Vexhai stared at the image of Earth on his screen. The blue planet looked so peaceful, so alive. His own homeworld had once looked like that, before the plague that killed the atmosphere and turned green lands into barren rock. "Permission granted," he said finally, "but report everything you learn." As Tashira left the bridge, Vexhai continued to watch Captain Jiwan's transmission. The human was offering something no Kalari commander had ever encountered: hope without conquest, healing without destruction. The deadline was approaching, but for the first time since beginning their journey across the galaxy, the Kalari fleet hesitated. Their perfect system had broken down when faced with something they had never calculated: genuine human compassion for their enemies. In the depths of space, two species stood at a crossroads. One path led to the destruction that had defined 47 previous conquests. The other led into unknown territory where compassion might prove stronger than conquest. The choice would define the future of both worlds. 12 hours remained before the Kalari deadline. The alien fleet hung in space around Earth like a collection of deadly stars. But something had changed. The ships that had moved in perfect formation now seemed scattered and uncertain. Commander Taishra walked through the detention level with slow, deliberate steps. Her purple markings were dim, showing deep thoughtfulness. She carried no weapons and had dismissed her usual guard escort. This conversation would be different from all the others. Lieutenant Ko Minho looked up as she entered his cell. After months of captivity, he had learned to read Kalari body language. Taishra was troubled, possibly even frightened. "You wanted to speak with me," he said. Taishra sat in the chair across from him, something she had never done before. Usually, she stood during interrogations to maintain authority. Now she seemed to want equality. "Tell me about your great dying," she said quietly. "Our what?" "Do not pretend ignorance. Your captain spoke of your planet nearly dying 2 centuries ago. She mentioned pollution, climate change, wars for resources. Tell me how you survived." Minho studied her face carefully. This was not an interrogation. This was a plea for help. "It wasn't easy," he began. "Billions died before we learned to work together. We had to choose between fighting each other or fighting the crisis itself, and you chose cooperation. Eventually. But it took time. Many people wanted to solve the problem by taking resources from others, like conquering weaker nations. Sound familiar?" Taishra's mandibles clicked nervously. What stopped them? Leaders who chose a different path. People who said, "What if we helped each other instead of hurting each other?" It seemed impossible at first, but it worked. Yes, we developed new technologies, shared resources equally, and slowly healed our world. But the most important thing we learned was that survival doesn't require conquest. On Earth, Captain Lee Jiwan stood in the Global Defense Network Command Center, but she was no longer focused on military preparations. Instead, she was working with every scientist, engineer, and researcher she could find. Dr. Kim Yuna had established Communication links with universities, research stations, and laboratories around the world. The biggest minds on Earth were working together to prepare something unprecedented. A complete offer of technological cooperation to an alien invasion force. Status report. G1 requested. Dr. An Tae-yun looked up from his tablet. We've compiled everything we know about atmospheric restoration, ecosystem rehabilitation, and terraforming technology. If the Kalari homeworld suffered ecological collapse, we have solutions. Professor Choi Min-ji added, the hydroponic specialists from the Mars colonies have sent their data on growing food in dead soil. The ocean cleanup teams have shared their techniques for removing toxins from water systems. And the military. Applications? Colonel Park Sun-ho asked. None, Ji-won said firmly. This isn't about weapons or defense. This is about healing. Sun-ho shook his head. Captain, there's still an invasion force. They could use our technology against us. They could, Ji-won agreed. But they could also use it to heal their home world instead of conquering ours. On the Kalari flagship, Commander Vex-High stood in his private quarters, staring at a holographic image that few beings had ever seen. It showed the Kalari homeworld as it had been centuries ago. Green forests, blue oceans, cities that sparkled like jewels in the sunlight. Then the image changed, showing the same world as it was now. Brown skies, poisoned seas, and underground. Colonies where the survivors struggled to maintain their civilization. A communication alert interrupted his thoughts. Commander, urgent message from the home world. Vex-High activated the long-range transmitter. The face of Elder Kasthara appeared on the screen. She was old even by Kalari standards. Her scales faded to silver, her eyes clouded with age. She was also his grandmother. Vex-High, my child, we have been monitoring your communications with the human world. Elder, I am following standard conquest protocols. Are you? The reports we receive speak of delays, of conversations rather than attacks. The Council is confused. Vex-High felt the weight of generations of military tradition pressing down on him. The humans are unusual. They respond differently than other species. How so? They show compassion for their enemies. They offer aid instead of resistance. They speak of healing rather than surrender. Elder Kasthara was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. Child, do you remember the stories I told you of the time before the Great Dying? Yes, Elder. Do you remember how our people once lived in harmony with other species on our world? How we helped them, and they helped us. Those were different times. Were they? Or have we simply forgotten who we used to be? The transmission ended, leaving Vex-High alone with thoughts he had buried for decades. Before the plague destroyed their world, the Kalari had been explorers and scientists, not conquerors. They had sought knowledge and friendship among the stars, but after the Great Dying, survival had become everything. They had convinced themselves that conquest was the only way to rebuild their civilization. Meanwhile, Sub-Commander Taishira was having the most important conversation of her life. Lieutenant Minho had been telling her about Earth's recovery for over an hour, describing technologies and techniques that could restore dead worlds. It sounds impossible, she said. So did surviving our own extinction, Minho replied. But we learned that impossible things become possible when people work together. The Kalari Empire does not work together with conquered species. We take what we need and move on. How has that been working out for you? Taishira's scales darkened. What do you mean? 47 conquered worlds and your home planet is still dying. Maybe it's time to try a different approach. You suggest we trust humans who we came to conquer? I suggest you trust humans who are offering to help. Back on Earth, Captain Ji-won was preparing for the most important transmission of human history. Every major news network was carrying the signal. Government leaders from around the world had contributed to the message. But the most important audience was 50 ships full of alien soldiers. "Are we ready?" she asked. Dr. Yuna nodded from her station. "All systems ready, Captain. Begin transmission." Jiwan stood before the camera, but this time she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives from every major nation on Earth, scientists from every field of study, and ordinary citizens who had volunteered to be part of humanity's greatest diplomatic effort. "Commander Vex High, this is Captain Lee Jiwan speaking for all of Earth. We know about your home world." On the Kalari flagship, the bridge crew stared at their screens in shock. How could the humans know about their most carefully guarded secret? "We know about the great dying that destroyed your planet's ecosystem. We know you've been searching the galaxy for resources to rebuild your civilization, and we want to help." Commander Vex High felt his legs weaken. He gripped the command rail to steady himself. "Behind me are Earth's greatest scientists, engineers, and researchers. Dr. Sarah Chun leads our atmospheric restoration project. Professor James Liu has developed techniques for cleaning poisoned soil. Dr. Maria Santos has created systems for purifying toxic water." The camera moved to show each scientist as they were introduced. Each one held up holographic displays showing their research, their successes in healing damaged environments. "We offer you freely what you have been trying to take by force," Jiwan continued. "Not as conquered subjects, but as partners in healing. Help us understand your world's damage, and we'll help you repair it." Sub-Commander Taishra burst onto the bridge. "Commander, you must see this. The humans are offering exactly what we need." "I am watching," Vex High said quietly. "This changes everything. If they can truly heal dead worlds, we could restore our home instead of searching for a new one." War strategist Nexicon stepped forward. "Commander, this could be a trap. They may be trying to weaken our resolve by offering us everything we've been fighting for." Taishra challenged at the bridge erupted in debate. Some officers argued for continuing the invasion as planned. Others suggested considering the human offer. For the first time in Kalari military history, the command structure was divided. "Silence," Vex High commanded. The bridge fell quiet. "Sub-Commander Taishra, what did you learn from the human prisoner?" "That survival does not require conquest, Commander. That cooperation can accomplish what force cannot." "And you believe this?" Taishra looked around at her fellow officers, then back at her commander. "I believe it is worth trying, sir. What we have been doing for decades has not saved our world. Perhaps it is time to try something new." Commander Vex High stared at the image of Earth on his screen. The blue planet seemed to glow with life and possibility. His decision would affect not just two worlds, but the entire future of both species. Deadline was approaching, but the choice was no longer between conquest and resistance. It was between the past and the future, between fear and hope, between the logic of war and the compassion of peace. In his heart, Vex High already knew what he had to do. 1 hour remained before the Kalari deadline. Commander Vex High stood alone in his private chambers, staring at the ancient artifact that had guided his people for generations. The memory crystal contained the last recorded images of his home. World before the great dying, children playing in green fields, families gathering around clear streams, cities built in harmony with nature. He touched the crystal with one scaled finger, and the holographic images came to life around him. For a moment, he was not a military commander, but a young Kalari seeing his beautiful world for the first time. Then the images changed to show the present. Underground tunnels where his people struggled to survive, recycled air that grew thinner. Each year, children who had never seen sunlight or breathed clean air. "Commander," came Sub-Commander Taishra's voice through the communication system. "The Council requests your final decision." Vex High deactivated the memory crystal and walked to his private communication terminal. The faces of the 5 council elders appeared on the screen, including his grandmother, Elder Kasthara. Honored elders, he began, using the formal greeting of respect. Vex High, said Elder Morjith, the council leader. You have exceeded the standard conquest timeline. Explain the delay. The humans have offered us something unexpected, honored ones. They claim they can heal our home world. The council members exchanged glances. Elder Kasthara leaned forward. Explain. They possess technology for atmospheric restoration, soil purification, and ecosystem rehabilitation. They offer to share this knowledge freely if we abandon our invasion. Impossible, declared Elder Rindar. No conquered species has ever offered aid to their conquerors. These humans are different. They show compassion even for their enemies. Elder Kasthara spoke quietly. Child, what does your heart tell you? The question surprised the other council members. Military decisions were based on logic and strategy, not emotion. But Elder Kasthara was old enough to remember the time before conquest became their only solution. My heart tells me that 47 conquered worlds have not saved our people, Vexai said. Perhaps it is time to try something different. On Earth, Captain Li Jiwan sat in the Global Defense Network Command Center, surrounded by her staff and the world's leading scientists. Every screen showed the countdown to the alien deadline. Every person in the room knew that the next hour would determine the fate of humanity. Any response from the Kalari fleet? She asked. Lieutenant Kim Yuna shook her head. Increased communication between their ships, but no direct response to our offer. Dr. An Tae-yun looked up from his research terminal. Captain, I've been analyzing their ship movements. Several vessels have moved into positions that suggest preparation for departure rather than attack. What does that mean? I'm not certain, but it might indicate internal disagreement about their next action. Colonel Park Sun-ho approached Jiwan's command chair. Captain, I have to ask one more time. Are you certain about trusting them? If this is a deception, they could use our technology against us or other worlds. Jiwan looked around the room at the faces of her team. These were good people who had trusted her judgment even when it seemed impossible. Colonel, every choice involves risk. But the risk of showing compassion is smaller than the risk of endless war. Aboard the Kalari flagship, Sub-Commander Taishra was making an unprecedented decision of her own. She walked to the detention level and opened Lieutenant Ko Minho's cell door. You are free to go, she said. Minho stared at her in surprise. What? I am releasing you. You may return to your people. Why? Because keeping you prisoner while asking for trust makes no sense. She handed him a small communication device. This will allow you to contact us directly if needed. As they walked through the corridors toward the shuttle bay, Minho asked, What will happen now? I do not know. Our people have never faced this choice before. In the shuttle bay, a small transport ship waited to take Minho back to Earth. But before he boarded, he turned to face Taishui. Sub-Commander, I want you to know something. If your people choose peace, humanity will honor that choice. We won't betray your trust. How can you be certain? Because that's who we are. When someone offers us friendship, we protect it. The shuttle launched from the Kalari flagship and headed toward Earth. As Taishra watched it go, she felt something she had never experienced before. Hope for a future without conquest. Commander Vex High stood on the bridge of his flagship as the final minutes counted down. His officers waited for orders, but he remained silent. The quantum prediction matrix was still offline, unable to calculate outcomes for scenarios involving compassion and cooperation. Commander, reported the communications officer, we are receiving a new transmission from the human world. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing Lieutenant Ko Minho standing beside Captain Li Jiwan in the Earth Command Center. Seeing his own prisoner free and unharmed sent a clear message to every Kalari on the bridge. Commander Vex High, Minho said, speaking in fluent Kalari that surprised everyone. Sub-Commander Taishra released me as a gesture of good faith. I want to return that gesture. Minho stepped aside, revealing a holographic display behind him. The image showed detailed scans of a planet that made every Kalari officer gasp in recognition. It was their home world, but these scans were impossibly detailed and accurate. "We've been studying your planet through long-range sensors," Captain Jiwan explained. "Our scientists have identified the specific atmospheric toxins, soil contamination, patterns, and water pollution that caused your great dying." Dr. An Tae-yun joined the transmission. "Commander, we believe we can restore your world to full habitability within 50 years. The technology exists. The knowledge is ready. We only need your permission to help." The bridge of the Kalari flagship fell completely silent. War strategist Nexicon stared at the display showing their homeworld's detailed analysis. "How is this possible? Our own sensors cannot achieve such precision at this distance." "Because we're not trying to conquer your world," Jiwan replied. Somehow hearing his question, "We're trying to heal it." Commander Vex High felt the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders. Every tradition, every military doctrine, every lesson learned from the Great Dying told him that trust was weakness, that only strength could ensure survival. But the evidence before his eyes told a different story. These humans had somehow accomplished in days what the Kalari Empire had failed to achieve in decades of conquest. "Sub-Commander Taishra," he said quietly, "your assessment?" "Commander, I believe they are sincere." Lieutenant Minho spoke truth about their history, their recovery from near extinction. "They understand our situation because they have lived it." Vex High looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. Some showed fear, others confusion, but in many he saw something unexpected: hope. "Communications officer, open a channel to all ships in the fleet." "Channel open, Commander." Vex High straightened his shoulders and spoke with the authority of his rank, but also with the wisdom of someone who had finally learned the difference between strength and force. "All vessels, this is Commander Vex High. Stand down from attack. Positions, repeat, stand down from attack positions." The bridge erupted in shocked voices, but Vex High continued speaking. "For too long, we have believed that survival required conquest. Today, we learn that survival may require cooperation instead. I am accepting the human offer of technological assistance." Throughout the fleet, Kalari officers looked at each other in amazement. Some protested the decision, but most felt relief. Many had grown tired of the endless cycle of conquest and destruction. On Earth, the Global Defense Network Command Center burst into celebration. Tears of relief flowed as people hugged each other and cheered. But Captain Jiwan remained focused. On the main screen, "Commander Vex High, we will need time to prepare the technology transfer. Can you maintain your current position for 72 hours while we organize the relief mission?" "Agreed, Captain. But I have one condition." The celebration quieted as everyone waited for his words. "I want to visit your world personally. I want to see for myself how a species recovers from near extinction through cooperation rather than conquest." "You are welcome here, Commander. All of your people are welcome here." 6 months later, the impossible had become reality. The first human Kalari research station orbited the restored Kalari home world, where green shoots were beginning to emerge from soil that had been dead for centuries. Lieutenant Ko Minho, now serving as cultural liaison officer, stood beside Sub-Commander Taishra in the station's observation deck. Below them, the planet that had been brown and lifeless was showing patches of blue and green. "The atmospheric processors are working faster than we predicted," Taishra said, reading from her tablet. "Ocean purification is ahead of schedule. The first test forests should be ready for planting next month." "And your people?" Minho asked. "Many are still afraid to hope." But the children born in the underground cities are asking when they can see the sky. That is something that has not happened in generations. Captain Li Jiwan joined them at the observation window. She had been promoted to admiral and now commanded the joint human Kalari restoration fleet. The Council of Elders has approved Phase 2 of the restoration, she reported. Full ecosystem reconstruction will begin next year. And the other conquered worlds? Mingho asked. Commander Vex High has sent peace delegations to all 47 systems. Many of the species the Kalari conquered are interested in joining the Restoration Alliance. Taishra's markings flickered with amazement. An alliance of former enemies working together. The quantum prediction matrix could never have calculated such an outcome. That's because compassion can't be calculated, Jiwan said. It can only be chosen. Far below them, in the underground cities of the Kalari home world, Elder Kastara stood with a group of children at a viewing portal. For the first time in their lives, they were watching clouds form in a blue sky. Elder asked. A young Kalari named Velara. Is it true that the humans could have destroyed us, but chose to help us instead? Kastara smiled, an expression that had been rare among her people for generations. Yes, child. They chose forgiveness over fear, cooperation over conquest. Why? Because that is what strong people do. They help others become strong too. Above them, in the research station, Admiral Jiwan received a priority transmission from Earth. The message was simple but profound. 17 other alien species had made contact, asking not for conquest or surrender, but for friendship and mutual aid. The galaxy was changing. The age of conquest was ending, replaced by something the Kalari's perfect prediction system had never imagined. An age of cooperation. Commander Vex High, now serving as ambassador to the Interspecies Alliance, often reflected on the moment that changed everything. It had not been superior firepower or advanced technology that saved both species. It had been a simple human choice to offer compassion to an enemy. The galactic soldiers had calculated every future except the one where someone chose to forgive instead of fight. And in that incalculable choice, they had found something more valuable than conquest. They had found hope. Years later, when young beings from dozens of worlds studied the Great Peace in their history classes, they would learn that the most powerful force in the galaxy was not superior technology or military might. It was the courage to choose understanding over fear, forgiveness over revenge, and cooperation over conquest. The humans had shown that sometimes the strongest response to aggression was not greater aggression, but unexpected compassion. And in doing so, they had transformed not just two species, but the entire galaxy. The story ended where all the best stories do, not with victory over enemies, but with former enemies becoming friends, working together to build something better than either could achieve alone. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon had been their greatest weakness, their tendency to care about others, even those who threatened them. And that weakness had proved to be the strongest force in the universe.